Good evening, one and all.
Good evening.
Here. First, I would like to thank Team ISPEL for offering me this opportunity to join the session as a moderator. I, Dr. Rohini Arya Verma, from Government College, Mysore, Raigad, on the behalf of whole and entire team of ISPEL, heartily welcome you all the learned and prestigious personalities in this e-seminar titled Language Death and Lost Culture, the Future in the Study of Languages and Culture. Let me introduce ISPEL. ISPEL stands for Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature. It was established September 2020. Today it is celebrating its honorable birthday. ISPEL is a society established with the motto facilitate to elevate. The taste and bliss in the field of English language and literature. Considering emerging trends in the field, it is need of the hour to blend the trends and win the minds. ISPEL is equal platform to share and impart expertise of renowned academicians and of its members to the fraternity and the stakeholders. The society believes that one can improve and elevate his abilities once opportunities are made available to them. Potential is always there. The need is to bring out from the margin to the center. Now the time has come to introduce the Master of Ceremonies. Now the today's Master of Ceremonies is Dr. Gangopadhyay Verma ma'am. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Applied Science and Humanities, Institute of Engineering and Technology, Dr. Shakuntala Misra, National Rehabilitation University, Lucknow. Dr. Verma has been actively engaged in teaching and evaluation in her institution. Dr. Verma is a poet and creative writer who has many articles in different genres and books across the country. She has organized UGC-sponsored national seminar, personality development, creative writing workshop in her teaching tenure. She was also NCC coordinator in her college and was member of Women Grievance Cell. She has been an academic coordinator and cultural coordinator in the institute. She has co-conveyed technical based abhudaya in the institution. So may I request to Dr. Gangopadhyay Verma ma'am to proceed the program. So ma'am, this is over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Arya. First of all, I feel honored to be a part of this lecture series, and I thank Dr. Ghanshyam sir and Dr. Shaminaz for giving me this privilege. This is indeed a very relevant and a very good topic, language death and lost culture. Language is used to transmit values, laws, and cultural norms. And the topic language death and lost culture arises a lot of questions within me, like what happens if a language dies? What happens to culture? How does language affect culture? Because language discloses culture and historical meaning. So this is a very fascinating topic, and we are privileged to have Avik Gangopadhyay sir, who is a resource person to deliver this topic. Avik Gangopadhyay is an Indian author, critic, columnist with 22 published books and 9 edited titles in English and Bengali to his credit. His works on language, death, diaspora and trauma literature, the transcreative psyche, metacritical aestheticism, demystifying the Aryan invasion myth, have earned him appreciation and unique critical attention from Edinburgh University, Scotland, UK, Heinrich Heine University, Germany, Sorbonne University, France, Canadian Diaspora Confederation, Canada, Center for Revitalization of Endangered Languages, USA, Canada, Asia Europe Foundation, Singapore, Library of Poetry, USA, Raj Oberendra Bhasha, Sanskriti Korcha Parishad, Bangladesh, Virendra Research Society, Bangladesh, and Varda Siddhi Peetham, India. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kanupriya Verma, Master of Ceremonies. I shall begin by offering my regards to Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature, Dr. Ghansham, the founder and the General Secretary of ISPEL, and also the moderator, Dr. Rohini Arya Verma, who initiated the preliminaries of this program, and also the event coordinator, Dr. Shaminaz. And to start with, the very title, Language, Death and Lost Culture, the future in the study of languages and cultures, it is better to speak out the truth that most of us hail from the background of English language and literature, but still this is a subject of research in the field of sociology and cultural anthropology. Still, language and literature, the very domain of language and literature did not involve the very core of language death and the lost culture. So let me begin with the very term language death and its relation to cultures. Basically, language is an important cultural marker. Both language and culture have often been referred to as synonymously. One's culture is determined to a large extent by the language one speaks. Language death is not just a word or an expression. It is a term used when the language is no longer known, or when the last native speaker of it is lost. Also, when the second language takes the place of the first one. Language death has been classified based on their process of going extinct, be it gradual from bottom to top or top to bottom, be it radical extinction, be it from linguicide and language attrition. The rapid endangerment and death of many minority languages across the world is a matter of widespread concern, not only among linguists and anthropologists, but among all concerned with issues of cultural identity in an increasingly globalized culture. In linguistics, language death occurs when a language loses its last native speaker. I intend to remain free from pedantry, and so maximum clarity I intend to communicate. Language death should not be confused with language attrition, that is, language loss, which describes the loss of proficiency in the first language of an individual. Often, when a language ceases, the entire culture ceases to exist. Therefore, the death of a language can result in the death of a culture to which it belongs to. Often, when I should say the 7,000 languages today they are spoken across the globe, these languages exhibit enormous diversity. To be precise, 6,176 languages are there, and the rest are spoken by less than 10,000 people. And the immense diversity in these 7,000 languages, from the number of distinctive sounds, there are languages with as few as 11 different sounds, and as many as 118, to the vast range of possible word orders, structures, and concepts that languages use to convey meaning. Every absolute that linguists have posited has been challenged. And linguists are busy debating if there is anything at all that is common to all languages in the world, or anything at all that does not exist in the languages of the world. Sign languages show that languages do not even need to be spoken. A very important facet of communication, rather. This diversity is evidence of the enormous flexibility and plasticity of the human brain and its capacity for communication. Up to half of today's languages, today's living languages, will be extinct by the end of 21st century. At the same time, more than 3 billion people, nearly half of the world's current population, speak one of the 20 languages as their mother tongue. While this might be great news for speakers of these 20 languages, what hope is there for the 7,000 other languages that are spoken? Do they have a future? Or are they condemned to die? Losing a language also can mean losing crucial knowledge about the linguistic group's history, culture, or even knowledge about the local environment. Language death is anything but a natural phenomenon. It is, on the contrary, a profoundly social phenomenon. I repeat, language death is profoundly a social phenomenon. Languages do not die because they exhaust themselves in the fullness of time or are killed off by predatory languages of greater phonological scope or of syntactic richness. Languages die because people stop speaking them. Rather than exploring why a language dies, it is better to ask, how does a language die? We need to discover what had to happen in a community among speakers of a language that resulted in parents ceasing to teach their language to their children. Where does language death start? How is it sustained? Does it have to involve a conscious decision on anyone's behalf? Can a language die without anybody really wanting it to? Most languages, though, die out gradually as successive generations of speakers become bilingual and then begin to lose proficiency in their traditional languages. This often happens when speakers seek to learn a more prestigious language in order to gain social and economic advantages or to avoid discrimination. When a language dies, we lose cultures, sometimes entire civilizations, but also we lose people, we lose perspectives, ideas, opinions. More importantly, we lose a unique way of being human. Now, today's linguistic ecology. And what is today's linguistic ecology? Today's linguistic ecology is of linguistic dominance. Linguistic superpowers winning the language Premier League. There are 4 pivotal forces working in determining the fate of languages: economic, political, cultural, and attitudinal. Now, 4 things actually happen when a language dies. Number 1, we lose the expression of a unique vision of what it means to be human. Well, to explain in 1 or 2 sentences, language loss would be culturally devastating. Each language, we know, is a key that can unlock local knowledge about medicinal secrets, ecological wisdom, weather and climate patterns, spiritual attitudes, artistic and mythological histories. Number 2, we lose memory of the planet's histories and cultures. And what does it mean? There comes the very concept of climate change, the effect of climate change on language loss. Climate change hastens language loss as people migrate to more central, safe ground when their own land is threatened by intense storms, sea level rise, drought, other things caused by climate change. When people set in a new place, they begin a new life. They compete with new surroundings, new traditions, and above all, a new language. Number 3, we lose some of the best local resources for combating environmental threats. What's happening with today's language loss is actually quite different from anything that happened before. Languages in the past disappeared and were born anew. But they did so in a state of what linguists called linguistic equilibrium. In the last 500 years, however, the equilibrium that characterized much of human history is now gone. And the world's dominant languages, or what are often called metropolitan languages, are all now rapidly expanding at the expense of peripheral indigenous languages. Those peripheral languages are not being replaced. That means that out of around 7,000 languages that most reputable resources estimate as spoken globally, only the top 100 are widely spoken. And it isn't just our understanding of the human mind that's impaired. In many places, indigenous languages and their speakers are rich sources of information about the world around them and the plants and the animals in the area where they live. In a time of mass extinction, that knowledge is especially precious. In the process, medical science loses potential cures. Resource planners and national governments lose accumulated wisdom regarding the management of marine and land resources in fragile ecosystems. Number 4, the greatest tragedy, that is the loss of mother tongue. The real tragedy of all this might just be all of the people who find themselves unable to speak their first language, the language they learned how to describe the world in. Some find themselves in the unenviable position of being one of the few speakers of their mother tongue. And some, like many of indigenous peoples, find their language in great danger as a result of a campaign by government to stamp out their cultures. Now, in this section, I shall refer to some extinct languages that have taken with them secrets spread over various continents. Let's begin with the example 1. The name of the language is El Molo. El Molo is an extinct Afro-Asian language once spoken in Kenya on the southeastern shore of Lake Turkana. A fisherman community, and they were capable to combat climate change. They can make fishes survive during water shortage and drying up of the channels and ponds. Example number 2. Diugun. The name of the language is Diugun, an extinct language of Australia, Western Australian coast, around Broomy inland. The speakers of this language once knew to create high-frequency whistle for distant communication in a language pattern. Example number 3. Shuadit. The name of the language is Shuadit. It is an extinct language of France. And these people, the speakers of these people, they were capable of writing scores, keeping scores, musical scores. Not all the civilizations they are capable of doing so. We know that in our history, in the Samvedas, we have notations. So we can even sing today by deciphering those notations, and they are very much translatable. Even before the Western notations came into being, even in the films we see that while creating the period films, they have just used the primitive version of their native resources. But very few countries, very few nations or ethnic groups were capable of keeping musical scores. Now the fourth example is Umbria. It is an extinct Italic language formerly spoken by the Umbri in the ancient Italian region of Umbria. And the speakers of these language, they had the expertise of mechanical shortcuts of architectural exploits. And with them, that is lost. Next comes Atakapa, a language, Atakapa, an extinct language of United States, southwestern Louisiana and southeastern Texas, and they had a beautiful grammar, an extinct language now, and the tragedy is that they have created dictionary. But the dictionary is gone, the grammar is gone, and the language is gone. Example 6, Una, also known as Aona. It is a language, extinct language, that was once spoken in Fuego, in southernmost South America, Patagonia, also nearer to Chile. And these speakers of this particular language, they knew the means of rapid afforestation. Their neighboring areas, the people from neighboring areas, they used to invite them when they need forestation, rapid growth forestation, and they used to invite them. And the trick they knew that went with them. Come to another example. Arutani, name of a language, and it is an extinct language spoken in Roraima, Brazil, and two others in the Curum River area of Bolivar State, Venezuela. And they knew the trick to live with least. And usually they are termed by others, by their neighbors, as the poorest in the world, but actually they knew to live with the least. And today, I wish they were there, because in the world of consumer fetishism, if we knew how to live with the least, it would have helped us spiritually. In this series, another example, the language is Barti, an extinct language of Sudan, northern Sudan, in the Tabago Hills. The speakers of this language have a large collection of Muslim dialects, and this is a dead language, extinct language, and with them those collection of dialects have been lost forever. And in this connection I shall refer two or three more specific examples on another aspects of culture. For example, Kirundi, the language Kirundi in Africa, and the bit of information that we get that this particular language has specific vocabulary for the elders, for the women, and for the administrative staff. And usually they don't overlap. So specific vocabulary for the elderly people, for women, and the administrative staff. In the Gondwana region, you know the Pygmies. And the Pygmies usually, they use 4 languages at a time. These use of 4 languages at a time, this is a bit different from the modern Creole that we use. And for example, in the FM channels, when we hear that Radio Mirchi Bangla, Radio 1, English word, Mirchi, Hindi word, Bangla, a Bangla word. But this is not like that. In the Gondwana Pygmies, they were capable of using one sentence with 4 languages, where the noun is from a particular language, verb is from another language, an adjective from another language. Such was the cranial flexibility, and gradually they have departed. We must not forget the language Kasaya in the Oklahoma region, and they had a unique way of punishing people, that is social ostracization, by not letting people to speak certain words of that particular language. And that is a kind of punishment. You cannot utter these words forever. And the same thing was there in India, in southern India, with one language, Mandivara. And this was in the lower region, the southern region of Andhra Pradesh and North Tamil Nadu. The language is not there today, but it was there, and the same social pattern of punishment was there. Here I intend to share with you some of my personal experiences when I traveled extensively the Indian subcontinent for lost languages and associated cultures. And I have shared with people during seminars and webinars. For example, the language Irabhas. It is in the southern part of India, on the way to Rameshwaram. And the speakers of this particular language, Irabhas, they were bestowed with the gift of making musical columns that we see in some of the South Indian temples, from sa to sa, or even the metal columns giving rhythmic variety of the talas. And that is, we haven't seen in the last 500 or 600 years, even with the advent of technological expertise. But thousands of years, I think from 700 AD to 1100 AD, these 400 years saw these temple structures. And this particular group of people who spoke Irabhas, that particular group still exists, but the language, Irabhas, is dead. And with that passing away of the language, that secret of making metal columns with musical tunes and talas, that vanished. For example, the Vali, another language in the western part, the people who spoke Vali once, they knew the trick of making herbal colors that were used in Ajanta paintings. And that is why how they are made, it was a mystery. Even after 2,300 years, they are there. But Bhale is not there. The ancestors of that particular social sect, they are now very much there, but they don't have the linguistic lineage. And so with that language faded the tricks of making that herbal color. I would also like to refer the language Yali, present in Himachal. And once they used took the language through songs. It was a musical language. But today Yali is there. People speak Yali but not in tunes. But these people who spoke Yali had a specific physical feature, and they were usually referred to as Aryan features. But in Ladakh, you will find the same physical features. They are Buddhist and they tune songs. Their main work is to put tunes into the dohas, into the mantras, but they are still there having the same physical features. To refer to Sindhe, another language in Meghalaya, the people who spoke Sindhe were capable of identifying water in the rocky hills just by viewing the rock and strata classification. They could speak out that here is water and here there could be water. And these people, the Sindhe speakers, they are gone. The language has changed. They now speak a language called Biete, but they don't have the heritage of that particular language. They don't know the trick or the notion to identify that particular facet. I shall end this section by referring to Bo the Senior. We all know that in the greater Andamanese, languages are gradually dying, and Bo the Senior in one of the greater Andamanese islands, a foreign linguist once identified that a particular woman who is talking to trees, to flowers, to the sky, to water, to birds, because she was the last speaker of that particular language, Akabo. And as she was asked, why you were talking, she replied that there are two generations, they don't speak with him, they have adopted a new language, so I have to talk to my flowers, to the sky, to birds, just to keep me alive and my language alive. And this Bo the Senior passed away on 26 January 2010. And population genetic testing found that this particular tribe was 65,000 years on this earth. So with her, it has withered. So the next step is naturally rising from the dead. Once the last native speaker dies, it is nearly impossible to bring a language back. Hebrew is the only language to have ever successfully gone through such a revival. This was due to Hebrew's special status as a liturgical language, vast written history, and strong ties to the vibrant Jewish community. Attributes not many languages are as lucky to have. Although Cornish, another dead language, is currently in the midst of a renaissance, trying to mimic the feat, its success is yet to be determined. The biggest reason why most of the languages which will die out over the next century will be gone forever is that more than half of world's languages remain unwritten. They are without scripts. With no written record, there is nothing language revivalists could even theoretically do to bring them back from extinction. The future of language is very much dependent on the number of children who grow up speaking it natively. Sadly, it's a potentially quick decline from endangerment to language extinction, as research in migrant communities demonstrates. Once a child gets past the age window where a language can be acquired to a native degree, they are very unlikely to pass that language on to their own children. This leads to the eventual extinction of the language together with its last native speakers. While attempts have been made at language revival, only Hebrew remains a successful total example of such a process. Now let us come to language revival, the term language revival. Language revival is when people try to make a language that is not spoken or is spoken very little, spoken more often again. Language death is what happens when a language is not used by the people who spoke it before. Language revival wants to save a language that is dead or endangered. Language revitalization is a fairly recent subfield of linguistics that is concerned with halting and reversing the extinction of languages. Culture and identity are also frequently cited reasons for language revitalization. When a language is perceived as a unique cultural treasure, a community often sees language as a unique part of their culture, connecting them with their ancestors or with the land, making up an essential part of their history. The most common methods used to protect language, to state it flatly. Number one, creating recorded and printed resources. These are the very basic ones. Recorded and printed documentation are essential for preserving a language's sound, context, etc. Teaching and taking language classes, using extensive digital and social media outlets. Insist on speaking your native language. Now, in the process, revitalizing languages, it is an incredibly important step in preserving unique cultural history around the world. And we find some of the languages, for example, Ainu language in Hokkaido, Japan, it is totally revived. Manchu language in China, a revived language. Quechua in Peru, a very important language, now revived. Barngarla, a language in Australia. Hawaiian language, almost dead, it has been revived. And Cornish, as we have mentioned, in United Kingdom, it is more or less revived. So the process is on. Now just get a glimpse of India. Now in India, according to 1961 government census, India has around 1652 languages, 1652 languages. Just after 10 years, the 1971 census shows that only 808 languages were left. So in the 10 years, more or less 840 languages just vanished. extensive study was conducted by a non-governmental organization for 20 years, and it is the People's Language Directory, the only reliable one in India, so far conducted in 15 volumes. They published their collection in 2013. It was inaugurated by Dr. Manmohan Singh, the then Prime Minister. And there it has been recorded that 220 languages has been lost in the last 50 years. 197 has been categorized as endangered. And more or less we are left with 600 to 700 languages. And here I would like to add some of the languages that are threatened, immensely threatened. For example, Gata, G-A-T-A, Gata, a language in Odisha. In 1991 census, there were only 3,060 speakers. And during 2001 census and 2011 census, no one was there to represent that particular language. Or we can mention of Malavedan, a South Indian language, and it was in 2001 in Kerala there were 6,190 speakers. In Tamil Nadu 6,410 speakers only. But in 2011 census no one was found to report about the language. Apart from these particular threatened languages, there are many. I am just mentioning one or two. We have moribund languages in India. And moribund is just a step between about to be and actually completely gone. The only remaining active users of the language are members of the grandparent generation and older. And one of the moribund languages is Turi. In 2007, only 2,000 speakers were found. It is a Munda variant of language. In Jharkhand, Bengal and Odisha, these people were found. During 2011 census, no record was available. And apart from the greater Andamanese languages that are quickly withering, or rather getting vanishing voices, I can mention Lui, an important language in Arunachal Pradesh. In the 2011 census, the 2011 census is partly published. There are a number of court cases going on. That is why it has not been published totally. And no one was found. The language 1 speakers, the L1 speakers rather, first language speakers, Arunachal Pradesh, Lui language, it is extinct language today. Nagarchal in Madhya Pradesh, it is in Chhindwara region. No speakers are found in this particular language. Nagarchal, it was Nagar, Nagarchi variant. There are variant of this particular language, but today in 2011 census, no one was found. Turung, another language in Assam, in Golaghat district. It was very much there, a Sino-Tibetan group of language, but with borrowed words from different language, but no language 1 speakers found. I am just mentioning a few to give a sense that the process is on and it's gradually picking up. It is not the revitalization process, rather the process of extinction. And here the government of India is running a scheme from 2014 known as Protection and Preservation of Endangered Languages for Conservation of Threatened Languages. 3 seminars and workshops have been conducted, 2 in Guwahati and 1 in Hyderabad as far as I know. But we have a long way to go. And to conclude, I think that we need again to mention the relation between culture and language. Culture is the characteristics and knowledge of a group of people, we all know, encompassing religion, vision, social habits, music, arts, customs, laws, dress, architectural style, social standards, religious beliefs, traditions, all coded in languages. And language is the roadmap of the culture. It tells you where its people come from and where they are going. Language shapes the way we think and determines what we can think about. Language is the armory of the human mind and at once contains the trophies of its past and the weapons of its future conquests. We must always feel sorry when any language is lost, because languages are the pedigrees of nations. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
It was indeed a very insightful lecture, sir. And this topic indeed needs a lot of research. I hope many of us must have been enlightened and enriched by this lecture. The platform is open for questions. If anyone wants to ask question, you can ask. Any questions, anyone?
Sir, Kanupriya, may I ask?
Yeah.
Sir, colonization is one of the reasons behind the lost culture, like we have seen in Caribbean countries and African countries. What are the other reasons behind the loss of language?
Look, mostly there are we know that four basic elements are there. Number one is economic. Now, the way Latin became a household language, because that was the economic reason once. If you know Latin, you can get a job. So let's forget your own language. You have to learn Latin to get a job and sustain. Next is the sense of culture. Sense of culture is what we call a prestigious language. And we have a trend, a tendency. It is our psychological affinity to move for a prestigious language that we think as prestigious and gradually move away from the native one. And this is also associated to the attitudinal purpose, because in many of the states, in many of the nations, even in different regions, we know that we focus on a language that is compatible and that is there to be flexible enough to get resources, that is obviously job and money, and they determine, they are the pivotal ones to make or change or shift one's attitude towards language, because it is not visible for everybody that what our language carries with us. So in time present, very few could decipher what a language holds for them. It is the very flexibility of the vision. If one is capable to envision the past and the future of a particular culture or a cultural sect, then and then only one can stick to the native language or acquire a second language, use it, but stick to the roots and develop the roots or get the roots enriched. Economic force is a vital one, and also there are political issues. We all know that language in different parts of the world, even in our country, are political weapon also. So the language of the state sometimes becomes so pivotal that people abide by it, people revolt against it. So there are ways and means of languages being threatened, and there are dead languages, there are endangered languages, there are moribund languages, there are languages, if they are scripted, they are there, but maybe there are no first language speakers. As we were once discussing in one of the episodes of progressive literary
Yes, sir.
circles, we were
Yes, sir.
once discussing
Yes, sir.
that particular Pali, Sanskrit.
Pali
there are no
Prakrit.
Pali Prakrit, Sanskrit. L1 speakers are not there. That is not the mother tongue of any people in the living area of the speakers. But they are taught as scriptural languages, but they are not mother tongue of any. So they will remain, and or gradually they will be further pushed by the language in dominance. And I have used the word that is the linguistic ecology of the day. The linguistic ecology of the day is linguistic domination, and there are linguistic superpowers, and they are the winners in the language Premier League.
Sir,
So
one,
if we talk in Indian context, like is not the responsibility, I mean, should not the state take steps to revive these endangered languages,
That
like
is
of
the
the
sad-
specific states?
That is the sad part of it.
Yes, sir.
I have started by saying that most of us hail from English language and literature background, most of us, and
Yes,
still language death, language revitalization is not within our periphery, not in the scope of the subject. It is the research, the entire funding, it is being done from the angle of sociology and cultural anthropology. And people in the West, in most of the universities, they are trying in such a manner that from the school level, from the high school level and in the college level, the students, they have to use the project. During the project classes, they are compelled to visit these linguistic groups, these ethnic groups with dying languages, with forgotten scripts, who are shifting from one language to another, and record it, document it. Because they have also became hopeless with their state politics and politicians and state funding. So gradually the universities and colleges stepped in, and after that states have started taking interest. I think we have to do the same, otherwise the vastness of our corpus, the number of languages still there with us. We need our high school projects, high school teachers, and
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Even the scholars should, I mean, try and take,
Yes.
I mean, write on the, I mean, the endangered languages of their specific states. At least, I mean, they can take these measures. I mean, of writing on this topic.
sir, just one more question.
Yes.
Like Israel has revived Hebrew, their ancient language. In the same way, can other ancient languages like Indo-Aryan languages, Celtic and Teutonic can be revived? Celtic, Teutonic.
Yes. This Celtic revival is already there. The Cornish revival is there, the Celtic revival is there. They will revive the Celtic element, Celtic language, because it is on the process of revival, and they have taken a very strong steps. And usually the canvas of Celtic language application, that is small, and with regard to Indian languages, the canvas is so big, it's so large, that we need state by state effort to create language awareness programs, as well as identify tribes. Or the main problem is with the unwritten, the unscripted languages. So many people are there with unscripted languages, even a scripted, well-scripted language which is not in use. That can be restored if needed. But a language without a script, it needs to be documented. So for that, the students of colleges, universities, they are to be given projects and do the basic requirements and the basic research works and documentation work. And then upon that, theoreticians can deduce and formulate and classify them. But the initial step is to be taken by the high school, college and university authorities first, and the language and literature group, the Department of Language and Literature must come forward, other than sociology and anthropology. We know that the sociology, the subject sociology, the subject anthropology is not as much present, as much vibrant like English language and literature in all the universities and colleges in India. But they are doing it. Even when I have done my field studies, I took help from them. A group of students led by two professors, they are visiting a particular area, be it anthropology or even geology. I asked them to gather some detail on that particular area or the particular tribe, their number of words usually spoken, the particular questionnaire I have prepared for them, and they helped me a lot because I can't go everywhere, though I have traveled extensively to find out what is the status of the language and who are the speakers and what is the particular exquisite cultural element that has been lost. If I could find out that, then at least I can record that. With the dying of the language, with the passing away of the language, that particular bit of cultural information that can be captured and written or documented. So this has to start. The time has passed. A lot of debates have already been done. Plannings after plannings, they have come and gone. But in reality, we have to start right now, and state will follow later.
The ISPL forum has remarked all the languages could be revived provided the will to revive is there. Languages have gone in the hands of power politics.
Right.
And what I feel, it can be said, about Sanskrit in India, which is the originator of many languages, in fact, English also. Politics is there for Sanskrit also. So, what have you to say?
The growth from within of these two languages are different. There are immense similarity between these two. If you read Y.R. Ramanujan's work, and he directly pointed out the linguistic similarities between early Tamil and early Sanskrit. And these subjects are there, these languages are there, and we are concentrated not on the linguistic excellence of the languages. Rather, we are engaged in petty politics, and petty politics will never. I think the gates are to be opened into the world of the languages, and politics is a fence that is difficult to cross, and that is why our several gates to different languages are being closed each and every day because of politics.
So the academicians should take steps.
A lead role. They need to take a lead role. And the thing I mentioned in the beginning, when I was talking to Dr. Ghaneshwam, that group activities that is not there in India because of different problems, ego problems, backstabbing, so many things happen each and every day. Group activities are the core in restoring languages, language documentations, indigenous cultures. So I think that time is ripe enough for the academicians
Thank you so much,
to enter
sir.
into this.
Kanupriya, are you there?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Next, he was the chairperson of this program. Professor Tiwari is a professor and head, Department of PG and Research Studies in English, Government J. Yoganandam, Chhattisgarh College, Raipur. Her specialization is Indian writing in English, history of English language and phonetics, linguistics and language Chhattisgarh College, Raipur. She is the founder member of the Research students have been awarded PhD under her supervision. She has published as well as presented papers in national and international forums. As a resource person, she has delivered a number of lectures. She has organized many academic programs in her college. She has participated in many conventions, orientation courses, training, workshops twice. She had served as chairperson of PG Board of Studies in RSSU from 2008 to 2011 and 2018 to 2020. She has been member of Board of Studies in various autonomous colleges of Chhattisgarh. She is the convener of the steering
Avik Gangopadhyay, sir, resource person, ma'am, president of ISPEL National Forum, founder Dr. G.A. Ghaneshwam, sir, also general secretary, then master of ceremony, Dr. Kanupriya, moderator Dr. Rohini Arya, and a number of professors, familiar professors that I see here, Ashok Sachdev sir, Shamta Chaudhary ma'am, and great pleasure and privilege for me to attend the talk of Gangopadhyay sir. And it was a very informative and insightful talk for all the lovers of language and in fact all the civilized citizens of the world. The awareness of the fact that half of the languages of the world are going to be extinct by the end of this century and only 1,000 would remain by the end of the next century is quite painful. So ISPEL by raising this issue, which is a matter of concern of all of us, has done a commendable job. And this talk, I am sure, would facilitate and elevate to revive and maintain some of the minority languages. I congratulate Gangopadhyay sir for giving a beautiful, well-structured talk, starting by introduction and making us familiar with some of the terms that are associated with language death, like language loss or extinction and danger. Then he also presented the background and made us aware of the present situation by giving examples from languages of Europe, other continents, as well as India. That shows his great interest and wide and in-depth knowledge of the subject. And he has highlighted that by discussing the linguistic ecology, that how economic, political and cultural as well as social factors are of great importance where reviving is concerned, and language death is a social phenomena. Then he also discussed how various languages have gradually been lost, the reasons, and then he gave examples of his personal experiences that he had going to South India, North India, and other parts of our own country. Then, and also showed the danger how even one of the oldest languages, having existence of 15,000 years, died in 2010. So are we really civilized if we are allowing such things? And if we have an example of Hebrew that can be revived, why can't we try for other languages also? And he also has given us suggestions on how to preserve the languages that are minority languages or are gradually dying. And then, what I would like to say is, culture is reflected in many ways. Clothing, then, food, architecture. But the most potent way of knowing a culture is through its language. Language, therefore, Traeger has defined as a system of arbitrary vocal symbols by means of which the members of a society interact in terms of their total culture. So see how intimately culture and languages are concerned. Unfortunately, many languages and cultures are dying, they are endangered, and this number is going day by day. As sir also has said, it is quite natural. Language death is natural, and we know if we read the history of languages, we see that how languages fall. They have the story like a human being. They are born, they grow, and then they die. The rise and fall is also there. Sometimes some language is prominent, sometimes it loses its prominence because of various factors. But the most important thing that concerns us is the rate at which it's so fast. It is said, David Crystal long ago has said that every week we are losing one or the other language. So that is very scary, the picture. And as his sir has said, it is right time for we people who can think. And it's amazing that we don't feel that it is a treasure. He says it's a treasure. We know that we think about trees, we think about animals, they are endangered, and we have all sorts of projects. But when it comes to language, we are quite ignorant. How many of us, I belong to Chhattisgarh, how many of us we know how many tribal languages. They say that after every 15 kilometers you have a new tribal language in tribal areas of Chhattisgarh, whether it is Sarguja or Jagdalpur and also. But how many of us are aware that many of those languages and dialects are dying? Are we doing anything? So that should be the main concern of all of us. So lost or dying culture actually is a great loss. It can be compared to the memories of our grandfathers. You know, man by instinct is a social animal. We want to know about ourselves. We ask our parents and grandparents, and we come to know to which family or this thing we belong, what are our traditions, and who we are. So, though it is said that in this modern and globalized world, these things, may be not considered very important or convenient, but they are essential to know our roots, and it gives us sense of security and pride, continuity and wholeness if we know where we have come from, who we are, and all that is known through our parents, grandparents. And if they are so important, their stories are important, then what about the languages they speak? So, this we have to consider, and we understand all things, whatever we have, in fact, life, through a process of interpretation, and that occurs in language only. The diversity of our languages represent the richness, and it is the main thing by which we express. It is the expression of our own being. And this is how language and culture do intersect. And because language discloses cultural and historical meaning, and loss of language is like a loss of a link. Just as in ecology we see that if a particular, in the ecology pyramid, if one particular species dies, that affects the whole thing. So in similar way, we also should think about loss of a language. Loss of a language is a loss of culture. And causes, as Sir also has enumerated, maybe political persecution, lack of preservation, and globalization. But today we don't feel that. Again, as Sir has said, most of the languages are dying today not because of persecution, but rather because factors like climate change or rural and coastal communities, they wish to migrate and assimilate in new communities with new languages for their own interests, other interests, maybe any. So as far as this problem is concerned, I was reading David Crystal's book. He has written a separate book on language, that's also an encyclopedia of language. And he sees this problem and says that there can be two aspects. First is the language that are dying, and there are speakers who want to enhance their language and to preserve their language. And in such cases, efforts depend on political and cultural situations. But then there are some languages which are endangered to such an extent that practically there is no hope. As limited number of speakers are there, and they are also on the verge of, you can say they have become very old and verge of dying. Such insignificant languages, they don't appear in the priority list of international or national bodies, because number of questions, what gain they would have, and all sorts of things are asked. Some linguistic communities are responding, as I said, by preparing a database which they hope to use and provide sort of DNA of those languages, so that they can reconstruct them when a proper time comes. So yet the concept of language as a treasure of us take us by surprise, and less number of people are concerned. See, the topic was so attractive that I was waiting to listen to it, for past so many days, but how many participants we have here? So this is a major concern of all who are literate, intellectual, civilized. So because otherwise the languages will die. The need of the hour is to recognize the minorities, linguistic minorities, and make, as Kanupriya madam was saying, legal and administrative provisions and all. Sir has very beautifully told us what happens when a language dies. And this also, Crystal has said that the expression of a unique vision of what it means to be human, we lose that. And of course, so many things they go. He has given examples of so many tribes, and he has himself visited, and he told us how these tribes, they Smita madam, can you please mute yourself? Please mute yourself. Hello.
Dr. Smita, please mute yourself.
Thank you so much. So he has said that how there are several tribes that had features and skills, and once they die, that knowledge is lost, and it's very difficult, almost impossible to get back that knowledge. And therefore, Campbell, noted director of the University of Center for American Languages, said the wisdom of humanity is coded in language. Once a language dies, the knowledge also dies with it. But again, there is another side of the coin also. There are some linguists that don't agree. And I read somewhere that one of the professors of English named John McWhorter, he was of the opinion, he asked a question in one of the articles, that would it be inherently evil if there were not 6,000 spoken languages but one? So this is a different aspect. And we should not grumble, but we should think logically on this question also, because it may arise. Because as sir has said, to revive so many languages, it will need time, energy, money, everything. So is it worthwhile? Some countries may say, is it really worthwhile to do such an effort, and why can't we have a few languages and we can work with it? But the problem is that professor does not associate culture with language. That was his fault. So even if a nation would agree, that would agree because of some helplessness, but not because language is not central to culture. So again, I would say that David Crystal has very beautifully enumerated the issues that may be raised if we try to revive the languages. And some of them are, the questions may be, what are we doing? Why we try to keep a small language? To the loss of species in biology. Which countries are antagonists to preserving the identity of since 1918, efforts have been made by some international bodies to preserve and do something for for the upliftment of the minority languages. Then European Commission for Democracy through law and United Religious and linguistic minorities 1992, and as sir has said, Indian government is also trying to protect, promote and safeguard the rights and interests of the minority languages. So last, as sir has very nicely said, what can we do? Some participants also are, what can be done? So as sir said that we can revive by teaching those languages, and I would add teaching not only to the native speakers but also non-native. Let us increase the people knowing the languages. Then as sir has said, social network can be established, and that social forming groups and strengthening the relationships between interested people, so much so that they may guard themselves, their languages, and it may not be codified, or they may not be able to publish books or dictionaries and all, but at least they will be able to maintain the identity and solidarity, these networks. And we as students of language, we can form, and we can try to become a part of that and help them. And then the third one is educate yourself. We will have to be aware of it, and the talk of Gangopadhyay sir has already started making us aware, and if all 18 of us would spread this tomorrow and the times to come, I think things may change. But again, we will have to take caution, because say countries like China and Russia, they are considering minority languages to be threat to their hegemony, and maybe they are repeating the mistakes of European countries. So finding a way to allow minority and majority languages to coexist, that kind of atmosphere we will have to provide, and that will, in a broader perspective, will be the key to preventing further languages from dying. So the need to revive languages is very necessary. Continued research on this topic, we should encourage. Students, they just want a degree, but we should encourage, motivate them that this is real research. Research is something which is profitable to the public, not just writing on theme or technique or anything. So continued research on this topic with a focus on cultural heritage may give solutions to this problem. And this topic, of language death, and the lecture, we can take the Gangopadhyay sir as a wake-up call. We are aware, sir, we are so thankful to you that by beautifully dealing in a very simple and lucid language, you have presented the problem and suggested the solutions. And if all the participants, of whom many are research supervisors, if they take up this issue, then we will be able to do something regarding the death of language and preserving the culture. I thank once again, and I am very thankful to Dr. Shaminaz ma'am, the coordinator. I think I forgot to mention her in the beginning. I am sorry. Dr. Shaminaz madam approached me, and the topic fascinated me so much. On the spot, I gave my consent. So I thank
you so much, ma'am,
for giving me an opportunity to be here and
thank
talk
you,
on
ma'am,
this subject and hear the talk of Gangu. Thank you so much.
Dr. Tiwari,
Thank you,
have
ma'am, for the
really
insight,
elaborated.
observations, and beautifully summing up the entire deliberation.
Kanupriya, Dr. Ashok
And,
Sachdeva is
as you
saying
said,
something.
the topic
Kanupriya,
is
Kanupriya.
a wake-up call, because
Kanupriya?
if we don't, are you saying something?
Dr. Ashok Sachdeva is saying something. Yes, sir. Ashok, sir, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, thanks. Actually, I was very impressed to listen to this lecture, and I equally appreciate the very precious comments of Dr. Kirti Tiwari. She has elaborated on this issue, and she has very well explained, very with wonderful observations and really academic arguments. And it was good to listen to her after such a long time and to see her here on the Google Meet.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, 43% of the 6,000 languages are becoming extinct, and one language is dying every 14 days, you can say. In 2 weeks, one language is dying. And the solution that Dr. Kirti Tiwari has offered are really wonderful. But I can also see that there are various languages where the mother tongue is discouraged. They don't know how to make use of their mother. They don't learn the mother tongue. So I think we can also make use of digital technology, because mobile and smartphone is in the hands of everyone. And this is a tool. This is a big play tool, you can say. So why not make use of this technology in order to revive those mother tongues, minority languages, and all that. But linguistic minorities have not been clearly defined in the Constitution as such. Now, UNO has offered the definition of minority, but there is no definition of minority in Indian Constitution. Now, minority becomes a schedule in the it's in the central schedule, but linguistic minority happens to be under the state schedule. So policies are very divergent. There's no uniformity, and also we can combine the policies plus technology together in order to revive those languages. I congratulate the speaker, Avik Gangopadhyay, for raising such concerns, Dr. Tiwari for wonderful, elaborate observation. Sorry for my intrusion here, and sorry for interrupting.
No, sir, your comments are quite valuable, sir. Very nice.
Thank you, Dr.
Digital
Sir.
humanities can help us. Yeah.
Your comments are really, giving us insight also. And as Professor Tiwari said that the topic is indeed a wake-up call, because our roots will be, we have to be bound with our roots, because as ISPL forum also said that otherwise we'll be the scholars will be attracted towards the pomp and show of the different languages. So it's really very important to be bound to our roots. And if Dr. Shamanaz and Ghansham sir permit, there was a question from Dr. Jyoti Patil. If in brief you just ask the question and Gangopadhyay sir answers it, because we are exceeding time. Dr. Patil, if you want to ask the question.
Thank you, Kanupriya. Since I have heard to Dr. Gangopadhyay sir and Kirti madam has covered each and everything, so I don't think I have much to ask. Actually, I wanted to touch upon the new development, the recent development of NEP. They have put it that 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and there in that first 3, they talked about classical languages to be taught, including Sanskrit and even Tamil in particular. And after that, they have put a foreign language to be taught from having education through English medium or any other medium which that child doesn't understand. So that is one way, but you see certain things are not in our hands. Even we don't respect Sanskrit. How many of us know Sanskrit or can speak Sanskrit? So we have to go back and trace back our languages and respect our dialects also. Even at Chhattisgarh forum we have. But how many means I feel proud I belong to that area and I speak Chhattisgarhi, but I don't get chance to talk. But these days even Google is trying, Facebook is trying, Twitter is trying to be localized. So now we are going back. So it's not that English all the way. We have so many languages that I wish this will be, of course, progressed, and there will be no politics into it. Yes, that is my observation. Thank you.
Sir, I would like to.
And as you talked about NEP, the ISPL forum also mentioned it in the comments, like oral literature has a scope to work towards establishing the old languages of the country, and as it is mentioned, NEP speaks about it. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now I ask Dr. Rohini, I request Dr. Rohini Arya Verma to propose the vote of thanks.
Excuse me, I just wanted an opinion from Ashok Sachdev sir and Gangopadhyay sir. As far as Sanskrit is concerned, what we learned in linguistics was language moves from synthetic to analytical state, and the process has gone. So Sanskrit gradually evolving into Prakrit and Pali has reached to the modern Hindi. Am I right?
In a sense, it is true. In a sense, it is true. But modernization.
I have read that efforts have been made to create a village where people will only speak Sanskrit, but I don't know how far they have succeeded.
So that is there in southern India, but it is difficult because, in a sense, that the Sanskrit language today, the way the Germans have dealt with the language training pattern, I mean the methodology of teaching, that is very important, and they had modernized that, because the traditional way of teaching and the traditional way of evolving a language and the incorporation of modern linguistic elements in a particular language like classical Sanskrit, there are dichotomy. So the Germans are doing, their German researchers are engaged in it, and they have found certain ways to teach Sanskrit in a very modern way and transform Sanskrit into a modern language that will be more flexible with modern usages, because a language that has become static for some time needs to be mobile now, needs to be dynamic now, and to engage with modern terminology, modern daily usages, that is to be there, and that is the way the Germans are working, and I think that it will work. It will work because the problem is that I think that we need a constitutional amendment for that, because government of India from the very beginning does not recognize languages with less than 10,000 speakers. And Dr. Sachdev mentioned about the minority languages, because to be specific of what amounts to minority status of a language. And actually, government of India does not recognize languages with less than 10,000 speakers. And there are languages today in India with less than 10,000 speakers, and they have cultural elements, cultural ingredients, and a long history associated to them, and that needs to be documented. So we need these areas to be attended to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Arya to propose the vote of thanks.
I want to thank everyone. It's also a great honor for me to propose a vote of thanks. Thank you, Avik Gangopadhyay sir, for your scholarly and thoughtful talk on the language and law structure, the history of language and culture. These were really good things for the like about and to thought it really eye-opening. So thank you very much, sir, for availing us. Next, I'd like to thank Professor Srinivas ma'am, Professor and Head Department of Indian Computer College, for your valuable observation and remarks, giving us your precious time, ma'am. And I also pay my thanks of gratitude to Dr. Saminaz ma'am for this wonderful session. It is really difficult to organize this kind of session. It shows your hard working nature, ma'am. That's why you successfully did it. I know that all the Sundays of February you have been managing this kind of seminars. Thank you very much for providing us such a great speaker. Next, I must express my gratitude to Dr. Shyam sir, founder and Secretary of ICE, who has unmatched leadership quality. It is because of you, sir, we are having this kind of opportunity to enhance our knowledge, to update ourselves. So, thank you, sir, for this wonderful platform and for your wonderful initiatives. And I also pay my thanks to Dr. Gangopadhyay ma'am, the President of ICE, for your opportunity.
Tha-
I would like to thank Dr. Columnist ma'am for total managing the events meticulously and managing the question and answer session very effectively. And last but not the least, I also thank the all participants for your patient hearing. Your activities mind and ask the questions I make. Finally, I thank all members who have given their service of state to make the system successful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now I request Nurul to please display the certificates. Thank you so much, sir. This is from ISPL team for your informative lecture. Nurul,
I'm
next.
thankful
Yes.
and I offer my gratitude to the chairperson, Professor Kirti Tiwari, Dr. Kanupriya Verma, Dr. Rohini Arya Verma, and Dr. Shamina Swanu, apart from Dr. Ghanesham, everybody.
Thank you
I
so
thank
much,
and
sir.
gratitude.
Thank you so much, sir. And
Thank you, sir.
Nurul, next. This is for Kirti Tiwari ma'am for your wonderful review.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This is very flattering and encouraging.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
I
for your.
congratulate all of you and also thank the person who has made this. My gratitude.
Thanks
to
to
one and
Promote English sir for helping me in making certificates and flyer. Some people were visible online and some people were doing work behind the stage, backstage. Nurul,
Their
next.
services are more valuable. Their
Nurul,
services are more valuable.
next.
Their services are more valuable, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Nurul, next. This is to Dr. Kanupriya Verma for wonderfully conducting this session.
Thank you, the entire team of ISPL. Thank you, and especially to Shamanaz for asking me to be a part of this.
Thank you.
And Ghanshyam sir, indeed.
And this is for to Rohini Verma for being the moderator of the session. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Dr. Ghanshyam sir for providing such a wonderful platform and giving me the opportunity to be the event coordinator of this month. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti Patil ma'am. Thank you all, the resource person, chairperson, moderator, and master of ceremony, and all those people, those who have supported me behind the stage, like Pramod Dingle sir with flyer and certificate, Smita by generating the link, and Nurul for displaying the certificate. So, thank you everyone. Yes, sir.
Shamanas, may I request you to give me at least 2 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So, Gangopadhyay sir, indeed it's a pleasure and honor both for ISPEL to have you on the platform, and moreover sir, it's indeed enlightening and thought-provoking kind of a lecture of yours. Indeed, we need to work on all these aspects, whatever you have covered in your lecture, and definitely ISPEL will be in contact with you to promote and propagate the Indian languages, and certainly we will work together, because togetherness will gather many more things in due course of time. So thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much, Shamanas, for thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Shamanas, for taking us to a wonderful journey of international and national e-seminars during this month of February.
My
And
pleasure,
February happens to be the month of 28 days. In all these 28 days, you were working very hard. Even in the month of January also, you started working hard. And you proved not only that you can manage people on the platform of ISPEL, but at the same time, you have proved that you can contact many people throughout the globe, and sky is the limit for you. You go beyond time and space.
Thank you, sir.
And working and promoting people, elevating people and facilitating them. So I think we cannot match your caliber and your what do you call it as capacity, but at the same time what we can do is we can just make you happy with one thing, that's what we call the certificate. So if I could be able to show you the certificate of your, I think that would be the most beneficial thing for each one of us. At the same time, I am thankful to the person for making us understand about the particular topic and making us to know about what she feels about language and literature. If my screen is visible to you, I'll show you the certificate.
Yes, sir, it was visible.
Was the certificate visible?
Yes.
Dr. Shamanas Bano.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for
Thoroughly.
providing such a wonderful platform
Congratulations, Shabana.
where we can
So once again, the certificate I am not presenting, but it's being presented by Pramod Dengle. I am the one who is just making it happen, nothing else. So
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Thank
Thank-
you very much to each one of you.
Thank you, sir, for providing us such a wonderful platform where we can interact with